I have been working in the Middle East for 18 years as people lead and got a good experience of feedback. And today joining me for this topic is Kez Taylor, who I'm going to let introduce himself. Kez and I worked together when I was head of people at Alec Construction in Dubai, and Kez and I had a great working relationship, and one of our biggest challenges was feedback, and that's why we've decided to take this as our topic today. One thing about Kez and I is we don't really do presentations. We like to talk and build conversations, so that's something that's going to be really important for us today with this webinar, slightly different to normal, I think. Over to you, Kez, for your introduction.
Okay, thank you, Emma. So I had the pleasure of working with Emma for quite a few years, and I think we were quite dynamic on the people front. And I think we did some amazing things. And I'm sure, as all of you know, in HR, you know, when you really turn people on, it is very, very rewarding. And especially when people really achieve their true potential, and you can assist them in doing it. I think that's something that I'm sure everybody just loves doing, and you get a lot of satisfaction out of that. So I was the CEO of Alec, a large construction group. I was there for 22 years, right from the beginning. We started off as a company that had no turnover, and within 7 years, we went to a company that turned over $1 billion. So we went through exponential growth very quickly. When Emma and I were working there, we were up to a workforce of approximately 15,000 people. And today, Alec is a business that employs 45,000 people. And they have a turnover in excess of $3 billion per annum. So it's quite a large group. And I would say the biggest challenge for a company like ours, and I'm pretty sure it's the majority of other companies as well, is, you know, it hinges around people. I mean, that is pretty much, you know, whether you got this machine or that machine, I mean, they're pretty similar. But people are what really differentiate you, and that's why it's so important that, you know, you get a group of people who have a common culture, who work together, people who can achieve great things and be challenged. If you can get that right, then you're going to become a leading business and a leading team.
Absolutely, thank you, Kez. And I think that was what we found was quite integral. And the reason why Kez and I thought feedback was so important is we went back to kind of, and what we're going to talk to you today is about our experience. We've got some slides, there's some words. We're certainly not going to read them to you. But Kez and I, when I said to Kez, look, I want to do this webinar on feedback, and Kez reminded me of why it was so important. And even though we're a business of 15,000 people, when Kez was leading that business, if somebody within kind of certain grades especially came to us and said, right, I need to terminate someone for poor performance, and I want to be really clear on something, performance shouldn't be led by HR, the performance reviews, it should be line managers. But Kez and I would get out the person's reviews and have a discussion before we made that decision, because it was really important to us that we weren't a hire and fire business. That was critical within Alec's culture and our core. And every single performance review we got out from the system would tell us that person was performing. Yet all of a sudden, the person was being terminated for poor performance. So Kez and I looked at it and said, right, why aren't these people having the right feedback? Because they're obviously not getting any feedback that they need to improve. What's driving that culture? Why isn't that happening? So that's why we decided to pick this as our topic today. So Kez, one of the things we've talked about, why it matters more than ever now, and I think this is I think it's always mattered, but how do you feel about kind of certainly with the generational impact that's coming into, and especially the construction industry?
Yeah, I think so. Emma and I mean, we set up a great program called Evolve, and Emma was at the center of Evolve. So we went to places like South Africa, we went to the universities, we presented to them. We convinced them that, you know, they should come to a place like Dubai where they're going to get great opportunity. So they came out of places like Lebanon, South Africa, and generally younger people. So Emma did a great job of actually getting them on board. We put a huge amount of effort into getting these youngsters engaged. And while Emma was there, I mean, we had like tremendous retention, tremendous feedback. But after Emma left, and I don't think it's just because Emma had left, but I think it's, perhaps their generation. We employed these people very selectively, and we really wanted to see them stay with the business and grow. But a lot of them ended up leaving the business, and I think it's partly because of construction. It's such a tough industry, and requires such a lot of hard work and commitment. I think they really looked at it and they said, well, they wanted a better work-life balance, and if they work for consultants, they wouldn't work 6-day weeks, they'd work 5-day weeks, etc. But out of it, I think we have had quite a lot of success out of some of the core people in Evolve. And I actually do believe, Emma, the ones that have remained, although maybe from a percentage point of view, we've had a high percentage of dropout, I do believe some of those are going to end up leading the business.
Absolutely. But that's due to the feedback system, I think, that was in place. Because one of the questions that I want to ask the group actually today is, do you, and you can put the answers in the chat, I'd like everybody on the call just to take a couple of minutes to remember their favorite subject at school, and think about why that was your favorite subject, because I think that's a really important question, because I'm going to come back to why that matters kind of, and to the new generations that are coming on board where we're seeing success. So if everybody can just have a think about their favorite subject, put that favorite subject in the chat. Don't worry, I won't read them all out, but I'll give you a few minutes. But I'm going to economics, physics, I'm liking these this morning. Wow. Psychology, geography, nice.
But I think what you'll find there, Emma, it's often linked to the teacher. Eh?
That's exactly it, Kez. That's exactly where we're going. And what did those teachers give you? It was feedback. Those were the people that spent time with you and made it interesting. People are saying that. And that's feedback isn't criticism. And I think that a lot of people think that it is, but absolutely, it's about how that teacher gave you that feedback around what you were doing. And I think that we got that then. So that became our favorite subject, and we probably did really well at that. So can you imagine if at work people got great feedback? Absolutely, Andy. Criticism and critique, I think that's a really important part. Sorry, these are all popping up on my screen. It's not criticism. Feedback should not be criticism. But I think that, we've got AI assistants and all sorts in this chat, Kez. So I don't know whether you can see the questions coming up. I'm like, we'll talk about AI later and how that's going to help with feedback. But those teachers gave you feedback, and therefore it became your favorite subject. And then all of a sudden, we're putting these generations into work where they're either not getting any feedback, or they're getting feedback that is criticism, and it's, you must do it like this. So Kez, have you ever experienced yourself as a leader when you first went into work, and I've been through your work history with you, but where you got great feedback from a leader that defined you?
Yeah, I think, also, I think if you look at it, Emma, I think getting great feedback, also you can get, let's call it maybe not negative feedback, but let's call it honest feedback that is quite tough, and that can really kick you into action. So let's call it constructive, honest feedback that kicks you into another gear or another level, or a higher ambition. I think the ones that had like a real impact on me were the ones that were honest, they were real, they were relevant, and they kicked me into another gear. So, and I had that from one of the leaders who was like quite honest with me, and I think what he did, but in a constructive manner, and it actually assisted me to up my game, become more focused, and I think I achieved a lot more after that. So it wasn't, all encouragement in that. It was,
no, exactly.
You could say very brutally honest, but in a constructive manner. So I think you can do that. I think for me as well, I've been following Rassie Erasmus, who's the Springbok coach for the South African rugby team. And what he's managed to do, so the people have come out of a very diverse and different background. And some people have come out of black townships. They haven't had very good schooling. Other people have gone to private schools and come from very wealthy backgrounds. And he had to put a very diverse group of people out of one country, but from very different backgrounds. And one of the things that he did, which was interesting, is that so they managed to win 2 World Cups. And that's a very difficult thing to achieve. But what he managed to do from that team, he managed to get every single player, if they could operate at 100, he managed to get all of them to want to operate at 120. They all pushed beyond what they felt was optimum and achieved amazing results. And one of the things that he did, Emma, is he didn't do one-on-ones at all, ever. He would never lock the door, go in one-on-one, and have a discussion with them that actually the others didn't really know what was going about. He would talk openly to all of them about poor performance, what they needed to do, but in front of everybody, because the team and teams are very important. I think it's not just about the individual. We mustn't just focus on the individual. We must focus on the teams, because the really good leaders are the ones that can operate highly effectively in team environments. And you've got to look at the team as a whole. So maybe what we need to do to become more effective in feedback is, it's not just about the one-on-one with the individual. It should be team orientated. And that could be a better way of getting feedback.
Absolutely. So has anybody got any experience or any ideas about how teams can be given feedback? Because I actually agree with one-on-ones. I'm sure everybody in the room who knows me on LinkedIn, I hate performance reviews. Think they're absolutely, we have to find a better way of doing that, and we're still trying. But so has anybody had any experience of giving feedback in teams and seen it being really successful? Anyone in the chat? Oh, like it, Andy. Yeah, important to agree the rules on team level. Yep. That's really important, I think, and perception. Okay. So
Emma, I think that's important as well. If there has to be trust between, let's call it the leader and the team, or the leader and the person. So if you don't trust that person, they're never going to be fully honest with you, and you're not going to be able to really resolve things. So creating a trusting environment that you can actually really open up and be honest, because you are, in a way, you are exposing yourself, and people might perceive you to be weak. The fact that you're being honest about areas that you're not performing as well as you would like. So people tend to guard against that. And I think creating a trusting environment that you can be fully honest in will result in a much better output.
Absolutely. Sorry, I'm really sorry. If there's a strange noise next to me, it's the dog who's decided she needs her morning drink. Literally by my, she's like, oh, just sorry for that, any background noise there. Yeah, so trust. Let's talk about trust and how teams thrive. Because for me, I think it's, people talk a lot about psychological safety, because you can have psychological safety in a team, but not necessarily in a business, and in a business as well. Because I think the thing about feedback is certainly it has to be done in a timely manner, as it happens then and there. This is why performance reviews for me are a bit more of a problem, because if you wait for a year and then go, oh, by the way, last February you did X, Y, Z, there's certainly probably been no action that's happened from it, and nobody's kind of, and probably forgotten. You only kind of remember what's happened recently. How do you feel about kind of feedback through performance reviews, Kez?
So what we started doing, Emma, I think after maybe you left, so we realized performance reviews weren't an accurate reflection. People were doing them because they were told to do them. We then decided, okay, we're going to do simple performance reviews, but on a regular basis. So we were doing them monthly, but they were very simple and quick to do. And you were encouraging, let's call it the conversation or the discussion. So people that should be talking about these things day to day, if they weren't doing it, it was forcing that. But what I did find was the most effective is I went to Bulgari, which is a 5-star hotel in Dubai. I'm sure a lot of you know the people that are in Dubai. So it's a very upmarket development. And we had employed quite a few new people, and they were section managers operating and working in the place. So I had a look at it and I said, for a section manager, there's 15 key things that I thought that that person should be doing. And I went there on the one Saturday and I thought I'd just walk with these guys at their place of work and basically in a discussion with them, just check whether they're doing the 15 things or not. And I went to the one guy and actually he was doing 2 out of the 15. And they were quite simple things. They were, so we assume that people know what to expect. But if you don't tell them, and I don't think it was his issue, that he wasn't doing them. No one had actually gone to him and said, as a section manager, we expect you to do these 15 things. So I went there and they were quite simple things that either you're doing them or you're not. So the kind of things that we would have there, we would say, we would want waste management to be done effectively. Material handling had to be done. There had to be a visible program of all of the works that he wanted to do for the next 3 months, which had to be visible to all. Either you'd done it or you hadn't. There was no argument. But what really worked there was we did it on the site, at the place of work. And it's important that between, let's call it the leader and the person, that you both agree that it's either being done or it's not being done, because then there's no argument about it. So it was pretty black and white. And so I went around with this guy. He got 2 out of 15. And I said to him, I'm going to come back in 2 weeks' time. And if you can actually do these 15 things, then you'll be doing a great job, or as many of them as possible. And I went back in 2 weeks' time and I had a walk with him along with everyone else. And he went from 2 to 13 out of 15. And he's stuck there at that kind of level. Amazing. But the point is that nobody had actually gone to him and said to this new guy, we expect you to do these 15 things. Okay, so that's not a failure on his behalf. I mean, you could assume, well, if he is a section manager, he should know that he has to do that. But actually, all businesses are different, and what we think and what we assume isn't necessarily the case. So you need to clarify that.
I think, Kez, I think that's so important. I think that's the thing, because I was talking to another company this week, and they had a list of expectations, and I said, has that been communicated? And they weren't sure. So if we're going to give feedback, but we haven't clarified the expectations, it's actually probably, well, 99% sure it's not the employee's fault. Is that something that happens quite a lot, do you think, in businesses?
Look, I think there's a big shortfall there. And, you know, it's quite a simple thing to do. And I think what we tend to put in there is we put in there items that are very difficult to assess or measure. So it's not, you know, you might say, well, I think I'm doing that. And you'll say, well, I think you're not. It should, if it's like that, it shouldn't actually be on the list. It should be very specific. So either you're doing it or you're not doing it. And I think if you can get that right, if it's simple and it's easily measurable, and you can assess whether it's being done or it's not being done, then it becomes highly impactful. I can tell you now, that guy, his area of his work, which was in a mess, in 2 weeks, it became, you could take anyone there and it went from, let's call it, completely substandard to, I would say, excellent. And that just it didn't take a lot of effort, actually, if you think about it. And you know, and I think that's where perhaps HR can really assist, because I agree with you, you know, the management of that is not an HR issue, it's a line management issue. But I think what HR need to do is they need to ensure that the framework and the system is in place, that all of that can actually happen highly effectively and add value to the people and to the business.
Yeah, so there's a question I want to ask, I think mostly HR people on the chat. How many of you have experienced when line managers come to you and said, I want you to give this person feedback, they're probably their line manager, I need you to give them this feedback? How many HR people, even just a little wave in the chat just to say that's happened? Because I'm a firm, but yeah, here we go. That's a good. All the time. Had 3 emails today. I love this. I love this. Exactly. So how can we, Kez, I think, important, Andrew. Yeah, line managers are not trained or understand. And Kez and I have also, Kez, this is another example. And I'm going to use an example of a document controller here. And this slips off feedback a bit. But imagine you have, and this we experience this, you have an amazing document controller. Best person in the business, And what happens is we go, oh, can't give him a pay rise because he's top of the boundary. So why don't we promote him to be the manager of all the document controllers? Then what happens is he fails. Now he fails because we don't train him. We don't give him management techniques. We don't train him to do that. And then what happens is he fails at his job. So we either have to terminate him or performance manage him. But it's not that person's fault, him or her, sorry. It's not that person's fault. Now, that's really important when it comes to feedback, because if we don't train people to give feedback in the right manner, we can't expect them to do it. So we might have a safe environment. We might be able to do it in a timely manner. But if we haven't trained people, then it doesn't happen.
Yeah. So I think when you go through leadership, we call them leadership pipelines. So you go from like a document controller who's managing themselves. He's had to shift from managing himself and being technically good as a document controller to leading a team. Okay, so the skills that made him really good as a document controller and the skills that are going to make him good as a team leader are completely different. So being technically good, it's good to understand it, but you actually got to learn, how do you lead your team effectively now? How do you actually inspire them and give them direction and give them a framework and support them? And so how do you, so that needs a complete leadership and a mind shift from what made you good in this role to what's going to make you good in the next role. And I think those leadership pipelines, which continually change as you progress in your career, if you are changing and you're adapting to the new roles that you go through, you find the people that can succeed, Emma, are people who have the self-awareness around understanding that what made you good as an MD might not make you good as a CEO, as an example. You do need to shift and change, and a lot of people have to figure that out for themselves. And if they don't, so I don't think we support them enough in that. We should be sitting down with somebody and recognizing they're going through a leadership pipeline change in what they're going to do, and we should then really pay attention to assist them in that, because it will be very difficult for them to go from, let's call it that technical role, into a leadership role.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, so just flipping back quickly to the HR question where everybody said, yes, I've been asked to give this feedback, because I think there is an assumption that HR are naturally good at giving feedback, but it's not. I don't think it's our job to give that feedback. And I think most people agree with me, but if we haven't enabled people to be trained, again, not necessarily our job to train them, but I suppose, again, question to the floor, how do you train people in giving feedback? Because some people are always going to be naturally shy away from it. Some people are going to be great at it. Is it a bit like a technical challenge? Is it technical? Is it leadership? I'm not sure. What does everybody think? There is a recording, Rita. I assume that I think there is going to be a recording. Fab. Oh, look, somebody's brought up AI, Kez. Now, you and I have been talking about this a lot recently. Before we go into when feedback fails, yeah, lots of people have got this in skills, leadership, technical. I love it. Oh, I like this, Andy. Coin, context, observed, impact next. Yeah, I think I've always found it a challenge, because some people, you know the line managers that are going to be great at giving feedback and naturally do it. Fab, we're getting lots of information come in there. Let's actually,
Emma, what I think, it's actually the responsibility of HR to get their line managers to understand the importance of leading their teams effectively. So if we can get them to, if they want to succeed as a leader and they are leading their team highly effectively, where people are motivated and, they're talking to each other, they've got feedback, they've got communication, there's an honest environment that they can operate in. When somebody needs assistance and help, they can go to that leader, and that leader will jump to help them and assist them. When you create that kind of an environment. So the importance, if you think of it, I mean, people spend a lot of time on technical issues, but the most important issues are actually the people issues. So if you can lead your teams effectively, and HR should try and help those leaders to lead their teams highly effectively. And when you get that right, if we can give them those tools on how to lead their teams effectively, then HR is doing a great thing.
So I think that, and coming back to kind of examples on that, when you identify within succession planning, within your leadership development programs, and you can identify those people, one of the things that we found worked really well when Kez and I were working together was bringing, again, we go back to the Springboks, and we won't mention the keep winning of the awards, Kez. I don't think my husband's online this morning, but he will watch the recording, so we won't talk about Wales losing. But the bringing that team together, we found was really successful when we had those leaders in a room together talking about what they were doing with their teams. That was a side of our training that I don't think very many people did at the time.
Yeah,
I think that really worked.
No, 100%. But I think, I think this whole responsibility thing between what are HR responsible for within the business and what are the line managers responsible for when it comes to people in the business, there's often a misunderstanding around that. So the minute you got a performance issue, the line manager thinks that's an HR issue, HR must go and sort it out. So they'll say, no, this person's not performing effectively, fire them. And that's completely wrong. That's not an HR responsibility.
I love that you're saying this, Kez, and every HR person on this call is going to be like cheering you and trying to find out where you are and what you're doing, because they're all going to want to work for you, because most CEOs don't say that. They say, oh no, give it to HR, it's much easier.
But often HR have to do the really difficult things, laying people off, dealing with performance issues. But actually what we should be doing is we should be training the line manager to actually deal with those issues effectively. And then, what HR should be doing is really creating that framework that people can operate highly effectively within it. But yeah, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding around that as to who's responsible for what.
I think that's probably made everybody's day on the call. They're all like, yes, finally someone hears us. So just let's talk about somebody said, Kez, you're awesome. I don't know whether you can see the chat, Kez, but Kez is one of the CEOs that if you'd ever had an opportunity to work with him, he's fab. Let's talk about when feedback fails, Kez, because you and I have been through this. We know what's happened when we haven't dealt with great people in the right way, and we've lost good talent in our business.
Yeah, so we've had certain people in our business who are very good at doing certain things. So they might be really driven, highly ambitious, results orientated, but they're lacking a lot of key things. Like people don't like to work for that person, as an example. So although he's driven, hardworking, committed, results driven, all of that, there's a whole lot of things that some people actually just don't have. So what Emma and I try to do, we had a guy like this who, highly effective on the one side, and so we decided we're going to come up with it's like a traffic light system, unlike a radar, with a whole lot of things. And we said, this is the kind of leader that we want in the business. And if all of these are green, or the majority are green, then you're doing a lot of these things. And, we went through it with him. We asked him to score it, either red, orange, or green. And we scored it. And he was failing on the majority of things. But his own self-awareness was that he was doing a brilliant job. And he felt that he should be the next leader of the whole business. So we said, well, it's good that you are aspiring to this, but if you want to get there, you have to change these things. But the blind spots were so huge that he did not want to accept it. So we decided we're going to do a 360-degree review with him and his entire team. And the entire team came back with very similar feedback, and he would not accept it. So I think, when it comes to feedback, some people just are not self-aware and don't have the EQ to be able to take it on board and improve. But if he had that ability to do it, he would have been a lot more successful in his career. But he just could not. We tried all kinds of things. So whatever tool we had, we tried.
Whatever tool we had. I think it's really interesting to talk about the compass, because the compass was a performance review system, if you like. We tried to keep it quite simple, but it had quite a lot of points in it, but we kept it simple on the inner circle. So the inner circle was our values that you had to have. And as it went out, it got bigger as your roles got bigger. But what we saw, Kez, if you remember, was when we had the personal compasses, where they were all green on a project, the project compass and the team compass were generally green as well. And when we go back to that line manager, that project compass was red, because it was the leader of that who didn't want that feedback, who didn't want to be part of that process. Whereas I think when a culture is good within a business and it's trusted, that feedback is taken.
But I think if a leader does not want to accept feedback, then they are basically going to be stunted.
Yeah.
And even although they have some very good qualities, they are not going to have all the qualities that they require in order to lead effectively. And I think this is the case here. You know, we tried all kinds of things from all different angles, and we just I think once you've tried, I think then, you know, perhaps it's just it's a bit of a misfit,
there's only so much you can do. Yeah. And I think we don't have the feedback compass today, Elizabeth, but we're quite happy to have a call with you offline about it, but happy to share that. But one of the things, oh gosh, I've lost my train of thought now that I was going to talk about then. Oh, 360s. 360s. Let's just have a quick chat about that with everyone. I've got a view on 360s, and because I believe they can be a good tool, but again, I think it's really down to having that trust environment within the team, the people that are doing it, and also the feedback on the 360, because if people aren't trained in giving that feedback, because sometimes I've seen where 360 reviews get either bought online, and then the line manager gets them or the HR team get them, and then they have to give that feedback, and it's interpretation. Does anybody have any views on 360s they want to pop in the chat to me? But first of all, while you're doing that, Andrew has asked a question. Do you not think often at team level there is trust, feedback and respect, but when you come out of that team is where the feedback and trust breaks down? Kez, can you see that question? Do you not think often at a team level there is trust and respect, but when you come out of the team? Andrew, do you want to pop your mic on for me and just tell me just give us a bit of insight into that?
Yeah, so often, and you know my background, similar to Kez in terms of construction. So at a project level, you found that interaction and the feedback was real and raw at times. So that a team structure worked really well. But when you brought it into the corporate level, that trust between the team and the corporate level was where the breakdown came. And that's where I feel that there's a gap. So quite often at the lower level and maybe down at a team level, you can people get feedback on a regular basis because they're all pushing with the same goal. But often when you bring that back to a corporate level, that's when you start to find there's a breakdown, often communication.
Yeah. Are you on mute, Emma?
Sorry, the dogs again. Yeah, Kez, do you want to answer that with Andrew? Because that's quite an interesting.
Yeah, so I think it depends on the culture of your business. So at our business, one of the things that we really worked hard to fight was political agendas and politics. So if we had a meeting and people wouldn't talk in a meeting, but when they went down the corridor, they had a lot to say, that kind of behavior or culture within the business, we really fought hard against that. So what we try to do was have a trusting, open relationship with all senior people within the business. And, you know, I think the minute that you got agendas and you've got people striving for positions and you've got politics and undercurrents and corridor talk going on, then you've got a culture at a corporate level that isn't going to operate as highly effectively as what it should. And it's very, very destructive, as I'm sure a lot of people would have witnessed. So it doesn't help the organization at all. So I think if you can get that right, you know, at a senior level where, and you know, the rest of the people in the business can feel it. So the minute there's politics undercurrents at senior level in a business, then you've got a misaligned organization at the top, and pretty much that behavior is going to filter through. So I think fighting politics is a key thing at corporate level if you want to be highly effective. And I mean, I'm quite proud to say that, we in our business, we actually put at a senior level, we put like a charter together between all of us. And it was quite a powerful thing, but very simple. So we said all of us have to develop a successor that will be better than us in our role going forward. If you haven't done that, then you've actually failed as a leader, in a senior role. The other thing we said we will remain friends for life, which is very powerful, because if you can, and it's very easy to break friendships, as we all know, it just takes one thing. One thing. You can do 1,000 things right, and one thing can destroy, a really meaningful, working relationship, or even a friendship, amongst people. So we had like half a dozen points, and we all signed up to it. And I've always kept that. So, but it was quite simple, but very powerful. And I think we all bought into it.
Yeah.
I think if you can fight politics, generally what creates politics at senior level on that is, when you get somebody highly ambitious who isn't part of the team, and they're only interested in themselves and their own position and what they can get out of it, and they will run roughshod over anybody else around them. So for them, it's like a competition. But actually, in highly effective organizations, I think you complement each other's skills, you operate as a team, you have high levels of trust, and you communicate effectively amongst each other in a very good environment that you can be open and honest and have robust discussions. The other thing that we said in that agreement there, we said that we must agree issues unanimously. So if we had 4, let's call it senior directors, saying to go left, and one said we're going to go right, we would wait till we all agreed before agreeing on a direction. We had to be unanimous. But it was 3-2, we didn't go for it.
No, and see, I love that, Kez, and I think that creating that culture, but slipping off the feedback side a bit, but that started for us at the beginning, didn't it? Because we started from recruitment. So talking about HR life cycle, when we had any kind of, and not even senior level positions within kind of a management structure, those people went through a bar setting interview.
Yeah.
So that we knew we were bringing, we had a culture, we knew what it was, we knew what it looked like. So it was never mass recruitment, and it was never mass release for us as well. Because as people are saying in the chat, if you've got that one leader that doesn't behave the right way, it can damage the entire culture.
Yeah, I think one of the other things that we did, Emma, if you remember, is we put that leadership model together. And in our leadership model, what we said is, first of all, a leader has to have the right values. And a leader is not the leader of the business. A leader is a charge hand leading a team of people on the project. All of us are leaders. We're leaders as mothers, as fathers, as brothers, as sisters, as charge hands, as foremen, whatever our roles may be, HR managers. We are all leaders because we're impacting other people. So the first thing you have to have the right values. And if you've got the right values, then you're going to create a foundation for, let's call it, future success. And then there needs to be trust between the leader and the team. Well, the team has to trust the leader, and the leader has to trust the team. So if you can't get that right, then you can't lead effectively. And then there's a lot of leadership traits that we identified, which can be developed, by all people. So setting clear direction and things like that, communicating effectively, leadership traits that were important. And when you get all of that right, what that leads to is a culture in a business. And it's definitely worth the effort of putting effort into those kind of models, which have lasting impacts and effects on an organization going down the line. And I do think that's where HR people can really help their organizations in putting those kind of models together, because you've got to put effort into it around training people, getting people to understand it. And the benefits of that are that a lot of the other things tend to fall into place when you get that right.
I love that, Kez. So it made my world whole again. And everybody, you should see the amount, I don't know whether you can see again, but the hearts and everything that are coming up of HR people loving this, because it is something that is critical to every business. Just quickly, because I'm not sure, I can't even remember what time I'm supposed to finish. I'm enjoying this chat so much. AI, let's talk about how that's going to come in with this feedback, because I mean, and everybody on this chat will know, you go on LinkedIn, you can see exactly where the ChatGPT posts have been written. We can see all of those things going on. How do you think AI is going to impact the way we give feedback to people?
Look, I think AI is going to be such a massive tool, especially in HR going forward, that you cannot ignore it. So people shouldn't be afraid of it. They should see it as a really exceptional tool. And the other important thing to realize with AI, you can't go on like open AI platforms to do a lot of the things, because the data that's going on there is from all over the place. So I think in an organization, the first thing that you have to do is you got to create your own platform. Okay. And then what you got to do is you got to feed everything in your organization, your leadership models, your culture, your values, your processes, your everything that you have, you feed onto that platform, that everything within that actually gets evaluated according to your system, not to open ChatGPT. So the algorithms can be written using your data, your systems, your processes, and then out of that, the amazing thing that can happen out of this, and the data, and this is the other important thing I think for HR people, the data that you are going to get out of that is going to be, because that's the other thing in HR, getting accurate data and accessing it for an individual, for a team, in the right data, knowing that it's accurate, that you can rely on it. AI is going to enable us to have instant access to that person, to the team, to the organization, using your processes, your systems. And a lot of these things, even on feedback and that, we could, and it'll all be around voice. So we will be able to use AI, it'll all be verbal. People will be able to do what we call scenario kind of situations. So let's say we wanted to do something around, let's call it leadership traits. We could take that model that we have, and if we said, right, our leadership traits are we want to set clear direction, we want to communicate effectively, all of that would go onto it. And then in a situation, so we could train people and evaluate people using AI, using your systems and your models to evaluate whether somebody has the right leadership traits in that situation, in that scenario. So the AI would create a scenario that would test the person. You would then get the feedback, and they would say, well, they weren't really good at setting direction in this. And then what can we do to actually help that person, which is called adaptive learning? What can we do to help that person to actually set direction, which is a key leadership trait for us? And we want all people to actually know how to do that. So I think AI is going to be such a massive tool if it's properly set up and understood by organizations in the people front. It's going to be a massive tool going forward. And I think all the data that's going to, imagine you could go and say, right, so in leadership training, let me actually go and have a look at that person. How did they score? Where do they need help? You're just going to have all the data at your fingertips, and it's going to enable you as a HR person to really make a positive impact on your business.
I love
so
that.
I don't think you should ignore it.
No, absolutely. We shouldn't ignore it. And I think if we can get it to automate also all our day-to-day admin operational HR tasks, as well as giving us this functionality to have all this information about our people, I think it's going to be absolutely fantastic. I think that if it's used in the right way, and gives people more information. I mean, I know one of the things you and I always talked about, and it was a while ago, so systems have moved on well now, but we had our own in-house HR system that we built to give us that data, and now people are acquiring more and more data every day. So I think those systems will be a big benefit to HR. One question we have got that I just would like to ask, Kez, is slightly off topic of AI, but we'll come back to it. How do you extract feedback from a client on service if you can't get it from the client directly? Is it too pushy to ask your clients for feedback every time?
I think if you overdo it, it's a bit like you go on Emirates, and every time you got to rank it, and every time you got to rank whatever you're doing. So I think you can overplay it. I think the best way to do that is not online. I think the best way to get feedback from a client is you should meet with them face to face. So I think rather meet with them, have a cup of coffee, and they would appreciate that. And that also, then it's very good business development. You actually do enhance your relationship. You do understand if you're getting honest feedback from them. And I think face to face, you would get much better honest feedback than sending them an email and telling them, please fill this in when they're very busy. So I think if it's a client, it's very important, meet with them face to face.
And I think then that comes back to feedback, doesn't it? Because if we get feedback from clients, from customers, it helps us improve our business. Yet a lot of the time we do just do, oh, happy face, happy face, happy face. Whereas being able to give real honest feedback in conversation about things that could be done better just enhances our business.
Yeah, look, I think what we've all realized, it's like the performance reviews we were doing, Emma. They were a waste of time. Because we put a lot of energy, a lot of effort, but actually the data we were getting back wasn't accurate. So it was meaningless. So there was no point in really doing it. We were wasting a lot of energy, effort, and time in trying to get that right. So whatever it is that you do, get honest feedback, and honest feedback is constructive because honest feedback really could help you as an organization to become better. So if you think you're getting, happy face, whatever, all the time, and actually, it's not that happy in reality, then, I don't think it's constructive for a person, a client, or you, or anything else.
Absolutely. Sorry, I've just whipped through some presentation slides there because we've been talking through all of them kind of back and forth, which is why I said PowerPoint isn't our strong point and certainly wasn't something we were going to use too much today. How to move that feedback, because I think this is quite an interesting side from vague to valuable. Lots of times we see line managers saying, well, they just need to improve on X, or then they don't give specifics. Is there any way, Kez, where you've seen in your experience of how giving vague advice makes things go wrong, or how giving great advice on a specific topic can improve people?
Well, I think everybody wants to develop and improve. Everybody wants that. So I think you got to start off with saying, this is where you currently are. This is what you got the potential to get to. And the things that we really got to work on together are these following things over here. If we can master these and get these right, then there's a really good probability that that's where you're going to get to. And I think piecing it together, that it's not just about the individual, it's about their development, but also how they fit into the organization and what the organization's trying to do. You've got to link all of those things together that it becomes meaningful. And when you get that right, I think then people really understand the importance of getting it right.
I love that, Kez. So one thing, and I hear this a lot from HR people, so I'm going to just throw this to the floor as well, is you need to be more strategic. How many people get told that in their performance reviews or as feedback? Any hands there? And people go, oh, I just got told to be more strategic, and I don't know what that means. Now, have you got any hints or tips for the group, Kez? Because certainly for HR, it's something we hear a lot. How do we build? What does that mean when I get feedback? I need to be more strategic.
Well, strategic is, so you put a strategy in place for the business. A strategy is really mapping out how you're going to get towards your vision, your objectives, your goal. It's your plan on how you're going to achieve it. So the organization needs to be strategic, have a plan on how it's going to achieve its vision. And then the people within that strategy also need to have strategies individually on where do they fit in, how do they function, but they need to understand the role and the part that they are playing as an individual in the overall strategy of the business. When you get all of those things to link up, then people see that how they function is important in the overall strategy of the business.
I think that's so critical, Kez, because one of the things I've been working on certainly within our network is when someone says they told me I need to be more strategic, I've said, well, you need to take the business strategy and now break that down into your people function. So for instance, if the business wants growth of 6 million dirhams, how are they going to do that? And if they're going to do that by mergers and acquisitions, then your people strategy has to look at how you can be the best in mergers and acquisitions. Or is it going to be through growth? Because is it going to be recruitment? So there's some of the things that I've taken back from how to be more strategic. So lots of people are kind of waiting to ask questions. So I'm going to hand this over to the floor. You can unmute yourselves now if you'd like to ask Kez or I a question, because I see that some people are jumping off. I know there's a lot of award judging going on this week, because I've been an awards judge myself this week, been doing lots of that with you guys. So are there any questions you've got for Kez or myself this morning? And you can unmute yourself to ask. I'm quite happy that you don't write them in the chat. Got some. Johnny, are there any in the Q&A? Because I can't see that. I can just see the in-call messages.
No, so every question that we see is good in the chat.
Okay. Kez, we haven't got any questions at the moment, but people might be typing. Is there any other feedback you want to give the HR community on how to give feedback or how to make it work in their businesses? I think that's probably quite critical.
Look, I think you got to, you've really, it's important that you train and allow your line managers to be effective in giving honest feedback and using it effectively. I think if you can get that right, I think you're going to have meaningful information to work with that, you can assist people to achieve their true potential. So yeah, I think it's got to be honest, Emma.
Yeah.
Honest and factual. That's what it's got to be at the end of the day. It's got to be truthful. If it's not truthful and honest and accurate, then rather just bin it.
Oh, we've had a good question come in. What would be 3 or 4 key metric points to assess the effectiveness of a feedback process?
Emma, you're going to have to answer that.
Oh gosh, yeah, and that's thrown me. 3 or 4 key metrics. I hate metrics. I don't. Everybody knows my thing is never about metrics. I think, for me as a business, the way we saw that we had great feedback was our attrition rate. I mean, Kez and I were, oh, hi, Rebel. How are you? Kez, Rebel's on the call. So yeah, we saw that we had such a low attrition rate in Alec, and I know that Kez gave me that as one of my challenges when I joined, and he was like, this is it, Emma, you've got to get this attrition rate. And we had a low attrition rate. And that for me was a metric that feedback was working, because people didn't want to leave because they knew what they were doing right and wrong. So that was definitely good. Organization health index. Yeah, I mean, our employee satisfaction rate at Alec was 97%. Another one for you that I will tell you that is really interesting, maybe not feedback related. Kez put a KPI on HR, which I was a bit like, oh, I'm not sure about this. And we had to get a satisfaction rate. And that was my challenge. And our satisfaction rate in HR went up to 99%. But what we did was we had a KPI also on responses, because Kez said that every time he walked on site, people just told him how rubbish HR were and had HR problems. So we put in a KPI on response rate of a 4-hour response rate, but not a solution rate. Our solution rate was 36 hours. And that was a measure that we used to make sure that people felt good about working with HR, which led us to, I think, our attrition rate as well going down. And a part of that was our learning and development process. So I guess those kind of things come into it a lot. Jonathan, should feedback approach vary between different generations? Now I've got a view on this, Kez. What's your view on giving feedback to different generations, having experienced our graduate programs and then also our leader programs that we had?
Look, my personal view is good feedback should be good feedback, irrespective of where you fit into it. Just getting back to that, the metrics on feedback, I would say another really good one would be, what are you doing with the feedback? Okay, so if we get a whole lot of feedback and do nothing with it, then it's all a waste of time. But actually what we should be doing, and it's similar for performance reviews, the metric should be, what are we doing with this feedback that we are getting, and what have we done with it, to improve everything down the line. And I think out of feedback, if you're doing nothing with it, then it's a waste. If you are getting feedback that is meaningful, then and doing something with it, then it is very good. So that should be the measurement, I think.
Yeah, I love that, Kez. Somebody's asked, have you got any tips, strategies to effectively engage with individuals who are resistant to feedback?
I think you just got to be honest with them.
Yeah.
And they got to realize that if they are resisting feedback and not actually, that they can't expect to have a great career. So, it's in their own interest that it's honest and that it's accurate feedback. I mean, you have to be able to talk about it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that the strategy that Kez and I used, where we did have those individuals that were resistant, we actually spent a lot of time with them one-on-one, which I'm now looking back at it. Did we need to do that? Maybe not. Maybe we should have spent more time with those who were open to feedback, but we spent a lot of time working with those individuals. We didn't exclude them. That was a really good tip. Don't push those people out of your system because you think, oh, well, they don't want feedback, because you're kind of almost giving them what they want and letting them behave in the manner that they choose to. We brought those people into our system. We tried even harder. Kez and I were lucky that we had that leadership talent matrix to.
Oh, you're on mute, Emma.
Yeah, sorry, I just had to mute because the dog's just decided to say good morning to the postman.
Don't worry about that.
Yeah. So that's what we did. That's a tip for dealing with an individual. We brought them into the fold. We almost made it. I think we called it killing with kindness. That keep going, keep trying, and make sure they understand that they get the opportunity to be part of that team rather than pushing them away, because that almost gave them autonomy to do what they like, and we didn't want that in our business. The compass.
Also, you know what, Emma? I don't think you should be spending all of your time, all of your valuable time in HR dealing with, let's call it, people who don't have the right approach, don't have the right attitude, aren't willing to participate and give accurate feedback and all of that. We shouldn't be spending all of our energy and effort on those people. We should be putting our energy and effort into the people that actually are contributing to the business. What you need to do with the people that don't fit in is deal with them effectively and give them an opportunity. But if they aren't a good fit for your business, it is better to rather cut them out of the system and they must go find somewhere else. So I think, the point is, put your effort and energy into the people that are bought into the business and that are making a positive contribution.
Kez, I think that's really, really important. And Kez always tells the story of when we released those people who weren't quite a right fit for our business, we actually used to get emails thanking us because it was done the right way. Because if you handle it in a great manner, and I believe that we didn't always get it right, but I believe we did used to get emails saying you were absolutely right, that business wasn't a fit for me and I'm a better fit here. So I think it can be done the right way. We've got some quite important questions coming, Kez. Hi Phil, good morning. So what's your view, and I've got my own view on this, Kez, but I'll ask yours first. What is your view on the direct link between performance reviews and bonuses and salary?
Look, I think you ought to be a little bit careful there, because we've already said that often the reviews are not accurate. And if they're not accurate, then, and the minute that there's money attached to it, people are going to manipulate the review in line with the bonus or the money, and you're going to end up with the wrong outcome. So I think you ought to be.
Remember that system we had, the first performance review system I had when I joined, and people had worked. It wasn't ours, by the way. I want to be very clear on that. It was not ours. And people had worked out how to manipulate the point system. Do you remember? And they'd worked it backwards. We scrapped it, but that's how dangerous it is. And we actually removed the link between bonus and and salary reviews with our performance reviews. We cut the systems completely. We were lucky because we had such, even though we're a large business, 15,000 people, we knew our people. And one way we did that was Kez and I spent a lot of time on site, and our people were on sites, and sites were the biggest part of our business. So that's where we should have been. And those conversations were had as teams. So when Kez talked about the leadership decisions that we made, when it came to salary reviews, we had our compensation board, if you like, was the senior directors in the business, and people got opportunity to come into that room and have conversations about their people with us. But we also then had the knowledge of the people. So we were in quite a privileged position from that, Phil. So we did actually remove that link. Couple more questions. How can we shift the typical narrative and guide managers, employees to focus their feedback on development rather than operational technical tasks?
I think it's important to do that. So, one of the things, like Emma said, we were very close to our people. So when you know your people really well, I mean, Emma did a brilliant job of that. She knew everyone. She would take the time, the effort, the energy, go to the sites, meet the people. And, and I also did that. And a lot of the people in our business did that. So we would go and visit them. And when we visited them, we would walk with them at their place of work. It wouldn't be in the office. We would walk on the projects, and we would like the guys to show us what are they up to, what are they doing. And whenever I did that, the big things that I'd focus on is to inspire people, to thank them for the good work that they're doing. If there was something that they weren't doing well, I would say you got to watch out for this, because if you keep repeating these issues, it's going to actually be very difficult for you to sort out. But generally, what I would focus on the positive aspects of their career development, their people development, their encouragement, and inspiring them. And I would just do that with everyone that I came into contact with.
I think that's fabulous, Kez. And I think that's what we need to get our leaders to do in our business. And that's, somebody asked about the compass, and the compass had no technical tasks in it whatsoever. It was all around values and behaviors, and that's why it was successful. There is a question for you, Kez, and I'm going to ask this because I'd love to know. When are you going to write your book, and what's the title going to be?
I wouldn't say it's a book, it's more like a memoir. But I saw Rebel ask that.
He's asked that.
Yeah, I think what we'll call it is, going from 0 to $1 billion turnover in 7 years, because that wasn't an ordinary event. To go from a startup business to $1 billion turnover business in 7 years. So I think that's what the title would be. Zero to $1 billion in 7.
And I'll write mine. I often think about the HR things that I'd be able to write and not be able to write in a book. It's a bit like that, one of those gossip channels, I guess. But yes, I think that one day there'll be a book, Rebel. Thank you for asking. Somebody else has asked, how often should we do performance reviews, and what are the best ways? And look, Kez and I, this is something we talked about a bit earlier on, and it's definitely not an annual review. Look, that's a complete waste of time. And yeah, maybe if you want to do a wrap up, but every business that I work with, it's about a monthly check-in, but the managers are trained to ask the right questions. I think I actually don't really like performance reviews at all, because I think if you're a great line manager and a great leader, you shouldn't have to have a performance review. You should be having a daily conversation with your team and know who's performing and how to get the best from your team. Kez, any views on that?
Yeah, so what we try to do was, that example that I used of the guy running the section of the job.
Yeah.
I'd say if you're doing that kind of a thing once a month, and it's very simple and easy to measure whether it's being done or not done, then it's worth doing on a monthly basis. But it's more around, it's got to be to inspire, encourage, support. It's not about policing. And I think if you do it together, so I would say, if you can have a simple system that you do regularly, it's a good thing. But I wouldn't say there's any clear answer to this. We've tried all kinds of things. 6 months, 1 year, 1 month. And then generally, often they're not well done and they become meaningless. Absolutely. So if you're going to do it, what are you going to do with that review or that feedback? That is the $1 million question. If you're
Do
not going to
something
do
about it.
anything with it, don't do it. You're wasting your time and effort. If you're going to do something with it, and that should be the key measure, what are you going to do with feedback? And I think if you're going to do something valuable with it or change things for the better, then it's a good thing to do, the feedback. And then I think each organization should, but I would say as well, Emma, the simpler the better.
Yes, keep it simple. We go back to that every time, don't we, Kez? Everything we do is keep it as simple as possible and do something with the outcome, because there's nothing worse. Like, you meet leaders and they go, I've had this conversation before about this and nothing's happened, so nothing's going to change. There has to be an outcome. And I love actually that this meeting has sent me a list of actions that we need to take after this meeting already. I'm guessing that's AI somewhere, unless it's Johnny, but brilliant.
No,
right,
that's AI.
Love it. I love it. Here's a list of
So
actions.
Emma, let's put it this way. Okay, so we have like a really nice chat here, all of us together. We bring up some important points. We are sharing knowledge amongst everyone, but what are we going to do with it?
Well, that's over to the floor, guys. What can you take away from this event? You and I, Kez, I think we should probably get the recording sent out to everybody, and then I'm just going to spend my day interviewing you because I could talk to you all day about this stuff. Any takeaways? Is there anybody going to do? I'm actually going to go back to my slides because I've even got a takeaway slide. So what would you try this week? So here we go. Here's the thing that I did do on a PowerPoint presentation. What would you commit to as one feedback habit within your business? Ask for feedback, give one win, one growth area, because I think that's really important. Like, we often think, well, with feedback's got to be negative. It hasn't. Like, feedback is positive. I make sure at the end of meetings to say to people, like, you did this really well, and I'm a judge on some awards at the moment. Get it posted on LinkedIn. Yep, we'll do that, definitely. We will repost your reflections. Okay, I'm sure Johnny's gonna be up there posting things on LinkedIn today, and I'll certainly do that as well. So we've got to end the session now. I'm really sorry, everyone, but if you can all got the one takeaway, commit to one feedback habit, and I think Kez and I will be on a call, no doubt, and work out how we can get you more information on things to do and get this out to you.
Yeah, so thank you both to Emma and Kez for the amazing session. I think certainly some really thought-provoking ideas. I guess to highlight for everyone, this session has been recorded, so that will be shared, I believe, with everyone tomorrow. I think, and I guess depending on Emma, what you're open to, like what's the best way for people to connect with you if they are wanting to sort of say hello and
drop me a note on LinkedIn, and I think Kez and I we'll have some sessions upcoming in Dubai as well. So if drop me a note on LinkedIn. Lots of people have got my WhatsApp because I've been getting WhatsApp during the session thanking me for people who've had to jump off early. So, I love that. Somebody's going to redesign their performance review system because of this session. Yes, I love that. That makes my heart warm today. So yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn, send me a message, anything you need.
But Emma, I'm happy, like, if there's any other sessions that we can share ideas around, I'm happy to participate with you on any of the other things.
Amazing. Well, I think if anybody wants Kez's information, drop me a note. I won't share his personal information on here, but we can drop me a note and I can connect you with Kez, because I know Kez is always happy to come in and talk to businesses about this kind of stuff. So fab.
Amazing. I guess true to the point, if anyone has any feedback for the community or anything like that, please do share. And at the same time, if this has been something that has been really positive for everyone, then personally I would love to have Emma and Kez back for another session, whether it's around feedback or whether it's something entirely different. But thank you both for getting.
We've got so much to talk about.
There's a hell of a lot. I think we should have a session on AI.
Yep.
Okay, that's definitely, how can AI, there's a lot, Emma. I mean, we could really good stuff.
Definitely.
As long as there's no South African rugby.
Yeah. No more Springboks, Kez.
But I think there's a lot to be learned from Rassie Erasmus in his leadership role, how he's interacted there, because it hasn't been about rugby. Actually,
I love those Springboks all the way in the comments.
Yeah, it's not about rugby. It's about a team of people, and there's a lot of really good lessons there. Things they did that weren't conventional. So I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned there.
And there's a lot of fans coming up in the in the chat there, Kez. So you're in good company. Well, thank you so much, everyone. It was so lovely to meet you all today, and wishing you all a wonderful Wednesday and the rest of your week.
Thanks, Emma.
Bye.
Cool. All right. Thank you.
Bye. Okay, bye.